see in Sefer Mishnah Torah about the Rambam Medicus Delos Matzavela Vesam Mashiach Maktos the Perek Shalom. So the truth is that the last two parakim, the Rambam speaks about Hilchas Malach, Hilchas Malach, and Yanam of Malach HaMashiach in the last two parakim of Sefer Hayat. But the last perek is a full perek where the Rambam is Matayr. What's going to be, in what way is the world going to function when Mashiach comes? The first perek at Aleph Retzach when they get to Dinim, when they get to Melech HaMashiach himself. What type of person he's going to be, what type of Gid he's going to be, and what's going to be his Eifin Haga. That's in Perek Yud Aleph. Perek Yud Beis is what's going to was for Eifin that der Welt sein. There won't be an Eifin of Eises Umeifsin, Ve'elim Kon Hageneg, and more pratim when they get to the Matzavayel. So the Shat Zarach Lahav and Arikol in Yanush of Sefer Mishnah Torah Hay Malachis. Yishkas Varam Magdamasim. Time to learn that it's halachis. He's Mikabitz. The all halachis of all the halachis of Torah. The Rambam starts off in the Sefer. Kol mitzvahs b'pirusha nitnu. So the Rambam is not coming to record and say for Hayad. You say Torah in general. Halachas Torah. Halachas. Yeah, shinyanim psak, which was the gather of halacha. Psak din benegel ma'aser means telling a person how he should behave. So that means what's the gather of halacha? Any information which is a hira of how a person should behave. What type of days you're allowed to have, what type of days. Not only benegel to ma'aser, but also lema'aser doesn't only necessarily mean doing a technical pu'ula, but a psak din, which is telling you what you're allowed to believe in, what you're not allowed to believe in, or what type of regesh you have to have. Any piece of information which doesn't change the way you behave, it's not considered halach. And in Mekayim we say Frayat. So the Rebbe says that the rave of the Pratim, the Rambam speaks that in Perek Yud Beis and Hilchas Malachim, which is the Matzah Elam, what's the nafka middle of It's true that it's going to happen. What type of psak din is there based on those Pratim? There could be in Yanam of history that if it's these in Yanam are negeya to psak din lamaisa, then the Rambam is going to bring it. The Rambam brings a mashal in the beginning of Hilchas B'Sabchira that this pratim of the history of how long the Mishkan stood in Shiloh. If there's the Agdar of Allah is anything which is ketitza from this information, there's a psak din hanegeya lamaisa. That's the Agdar of Allah. That's the Rebbe's Magdir. Mishnah Allah is what's the gather of Allah in Yanam psak din hanegeya lamaisa. So if you want to have what's the avchana to know whether a gvisa piece of Torah belongs in the Rambam or not, is there a psak din hanegeya lamaisa which is yaitze from this prat or not? So the Rambam brings the mashal the history of Avodah Zarah. So that's negeh. That's a psak din hanegeya lamaisa. It's negeh to know how Avodah Zarah started. There's different nafkaminas ledina based on that. But anything which is not nafkamina ledina, the Rambam is not going to bring it. So in a movement, heich shaykh lemal in hanal shezau halacha ma'yan afkusa b'negeya lepel mebir matzav. So the Rebbe is the first teretz, a pashta teretz, that there's a chiyuv muzdach gleivin and Mashiach. You have to believe in every word in Torah. But besides that, there's certain things which are l'mashal in Sifra and Nevi'im or Madrash Chazal. There's different days, machlekes, in which shalav dafka are going to be lepayel these things. Then there's a chiyuv for a person to believe the Mashiach is going to come. Chiyuv lahamin v'biyasi. So the Rebbe wants to say here that the chiyuv is not only to believe that the Chayes is going to be a king that's going to come and solve all the world's problems. What do you have to believe in? You have to believe in every single prat that the Rambam brings. The chiyuv ha'emunah b'yis Mashiach is kail of these prat that the Rambam brings in the Sefer Hayat. Means you have to believe that there's going to be a time there's not going to be any more hunger. There's going to be a time there won't be any more tacharus, no more kinna. That's a chelik of the chiyuv ha'emunah b'yis Mashiach. These prat that the Rambam brings. There's other inyanim of when they get to Mashiach, but it's not nichal on the chiyuv of ha'emunah b'yis Mashiach. It means I just want to bring at this point. There's two pratim here. There's certain things which are about the midrashim when they get to what's going to be Mashiach is going to come, where there's no chiyuv to believe that it's going to happen l'payil. There's machlekes. Not every single day which is written in Gemara or in Medrash means that it's going to be l'maisa. So that's asvara l'payil Allah is nishtazeh. So the prat that the Rambam brings, this is going to happen l'payil, and the chiyuv ha'emunah is kail of these pratim. Then there is things which are mashal in Sifra and Nevi'im. There's a chiyuv to believe in them, but that's not a prat in the chiyuv ha'emunah b'biyas Mashiach. Mashal the Rambam says that the chiyuv ha'emunah and b'yis Mashiach is one of the gimel ikrim. You have to believe that everything that's written in Torah is true, but it's not an ikr b'das. That means that the nafkamina is if someone doesn't believe the gimel ikrim are things that if you don't believe in them, you don't have a correct understanding what Yiddishkeit is. If someone doesn't know that there's a mitzvah to chayes that there's a isra of muktzah, a race is that. He's not missing any information about what the pshat Torah mitzvah, what the pshat Yiddishkeit is. He doesn't know the information about muktzah. If someone doesn't know the concept of B'yis Mashiach, so he could be a shegig, he doesn't have a correct understanding what Yiddishkeit is all about. Does not verstehen for us. But the Rebbe is saying here that when the Rambam brings these pratim, because it's a prat in the chiyuv ha'emunah B'yis Mashiach. It means not only certain things which the Rambam doesn't bring, you don't have to believe that they're going to happen l'payil. Because the day in Torah, the day Lav Dafka is going to be experienced, and it's going to express itself b'maisa b'payil mamish. even things which are for sure going to happen to Poil, but things that the Ram doesn't bring as a chelik in the tier of Matzav Elam is not a prat in the chiyuv in believing in Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe sagt. That's the Erste. Shloime. For us in the Gere prat deep prat because a chiyuv laham nebiyas Mashiach, and the Rebbe adds here also a year later also lachakis lebiyasi. The chiyuv is not only believe that he's coming, it's schwer as verstehen, but you have to also how do you say it? You have to be mitzapa lebiyasi, mechaka lebiyasi. Peldik Azach is the Rambam says that kol mi she'ene maimin bay, ve'ene mechaka lebiyasi, so he's a kafir. He's not only a kafir, but Nevi'im is also a kafir b'Torah. If someone's ene mechaka, why is he a kafir? So it's an issue in Leiv. He believes Mashiach is going to come, but he's not. But he's happy with his life right now. There's nish mechaka. He's not waiting for Mashiach to come. Why is he a kafir? The Rambam says he's a kafir. Anyways, but that's the zichar. So that chiyuv to laham nebiyas Mashiach and to await his coming. Lachakis lebiyas. So them like the Rebbe Tzu that the chiyuv to believe in B'yas Mashiach and to await is not only to wait. What's the chiyuv? You have the chiyuv to be mechake kelo gam kol hamayles sheyiu os ala pratim. Yeah. It means a person has to await. You have to be mitzape al pidin. You have to have a taiva that there's going to be azman, won't be any more hunger in the world. There won't be milchama. There won't be kineh. There won't be tachros. You have to believe that it's going to happen, and we have to await that situation. Pisa move and shetir na mas de zum shir kholer eksibur dvarim ala Allah sagt in gel asbe sheschiv laham lo khakes lerek lo klos bias shmashir el gam mas ze bkhol prat monim ram but the shaila is lamer sagen zu das abschat hokuf a time by madu any mas kham khakes bias shmashir bkhol what's that going to be? Why is it not enough for a person to believe in the general concept of bias shmashir? As I was saying here, not stating Torah is emes nicht wegen dem netzer. Why are these pratim a chelik in the musik of bias shmashir? That's the shaila. Gam lahavin ulachakis b'chol aprat. That's the shaykh. Okay. I get it. What's the gather of B'yas Mashiach? What is the? I mean, there's different concepts. There's different inyan of B'yas Mashiach. But what's the alpidin? What is in yana of this Malach HaMashiach, which is a chiyuv to believe that he's coming? So the gather of B'yas Mashiach is shekim hamitzvos yiyu az b'tachas hashleimus. The gather is that there's going to be a time that being Mekayim Torah mitzvahs is going to be in the most perfect shleimus dekaway. That's the gather from B'yas Mashiach. Not that there's going to be a person that's going to take away chayli ba'ilam or other things. That's not. The Ram doesn't mention the Mashiach is going to take away tzaras. The ikar in what's in the gather of B'yas Mashiach apidin is that kiyum Torah mitzvahs is going to be b'shleimus. That's the gather of B'yas Mashiach. Means it's not a gather of schar. As ik have entitled B'yas Mashiach is a gather of schar mitzvahs. So it's not a reward for kiyum Torah mitzvahs. Wie der Sam Sefer has verstanden that the inyan of B'yas Mashiach is a schar, but the B'yas Mashiach is we're doing what the Eibishter wants is going to be done in the most perfect and the most ideal way that was never done in such a way. This is all. That's the Rebbe Meir to be mechiach is in a sicha of in Balach Chelik Yud Ches. That's in the Dvar Malchus. The first sicha in the Dvar Malchus was the sicha of Balak, I think. So that's what the Rebbe's Meir. Re'ei Baruch considers Chelik Yud Ches. So Hageder B'yas Mashiach Hu Shekim HaMitzvos Yiyu Oz B'Tachas HaShleimus. As that's the Hageder B'yas Mashiach HaPidon. Ukolosh na Rambam b'perek shelifnei zeh. The Rambam says HaMelech HaMashiach. What's the Rambam say? What's the Lashon Rambam? Melech HaMashiach Asad Lamed. Ulahachzer Malchus Beis David LeYeshna Amemshala Rishona. So the Melech is going to be a Melech, which is going to restore Malchus Beis David to the way it was originally. Originally means the way it was before the Mamlechas Yisrael divided into two Mamlechas. In a later Tkufa, there became Malchus, two Shvatim were by Yehuda, and many Shvatim were by Malchus Yisrael. And Shevat Ephraim, another Shevat was the Melech. Mashiach and the Melech HaMashiach is going to be Machzor that all Yidden will be under one Malchus, and they're going to be they're going to be in control of the entire universe. It'll be Malchus Beis David. So that's the first thing. But that the Rambam says what he's going to do. But what's the purpose of that? What do we gain by the fact that there's going to be a Melech which is going to restore Malchus Beis David to its original position? What's verdient mit davon? So the Rambam says, "K'titzah mizeh chayzin kol hamishpatim biyamav k'shahayim mikaydem makrivin karbonis eisen shmitim v'yevlis k'chol mitzvahs amur b'terev." So the Rebbe learns that big arichas of that tzarich in Balak that according to Api Allah the gather B'yas Mashiach is that there's going to be a time where the Torah is going to be in the most ideal form. Kiyam Torah will be b'shleimus. That's the get the Beis Mashiach. Yeah. Next one, I feel beniger Mr. Shnukas Shneges and also love it's going to be b'shleimus. Kahegi. Moving the pashtos. Shleim was Shatir Beis Mashiach. He shnei was nailes yes. Gam yes. Shleim was yes. Bizman shvis the shaytan. Okay. Keil gam yes. Mazman shlohi malchi shitzir li Yisrael shliich li Yisrael lasi b'tem is gehegen. The kibbutz shadaf kaze Beis Mashiach. Even Bizman Shloime there was Yidden which weren't fully you say hamgetan the way Torah is mechayiv. It was Yitzhahara in those days. And even though there was no tsaris mechus and Yidden had ashirus and there was you were able to sit and learn barchavas hadas, but there was Yitzhahara. Mashiach Mashiach Yisrael Mashiach Yaakov called Yisrael. All the Yidden are going to be behesten to the way the Eibishter wants. Means the Torah, the way it is in its original form, that's going to be the Lepeil Mamish, which was never such a tkufa like that. And a Yid has to believe that one day the Eibishter's Ratzon is going to play itself out exactly the way it's written in Torah. Which was never like that in history as Asar Mitzvahs. La'aslev is on the Shleimus Kimateiru Mitzvahs. The Rebbe adds here in the brackets, I'm going through every prat, even though it's not negate to the call Hadran. But if the other wants to stip, that's from ideas. But I'm just negate durch. This is not negate to the call Hadran. The Inyan Zeshem Yisrael Mashiach here Kiyam Mitzvahs V'Tavas HaShleimus is Mudgish Be'ikr B'Mitzvah Rishayim. So this the Kudah Mitzvah is going to be Mudgish Be'ikr the Mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. Which the Rebbe adds here that the mitzvah Rishayim is Rishayim Gam B'Mayla. Kiven Shiyah Yisayid V'Amad D'Chol HaMitzvah. The Rambam calls the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem mitzvah Rishayim Leida Sheyesh HaMatzah. It's not just the first. The Rambam's Yed Zach is B'Seder Masudar. It's the most choshev mitzvah. Most important mitzvah is Leida Sheyesh HaMatzah Yidiyas. Leida Sheyesh HaMalakah. Another verter, the Rebbe is saying, there are many times that the Indian of Limud Achsidis, which is Yidiyas HaLukos, is the most important mitzvah. And the Rambam said that it's the foundation of all mitzvahs. Yidiyas Hashem, so in the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem, that's where it's mudgish in a very boiling in the chiddush, which is going to be lost. Why? So all other mitzvahs, the reason why we can't do the Mishleimus Uzan Hazeh is not because be'etzem we don't have the ability to do it. There's dvarim chitzayim which don't let us do it via after that. The mashal, let's say karbanos. So we have the ability to bring a sheep. There's a sheep. We have an ability to bring a sheep. There was a churban, and we don't have the ability to build a Beis Hamikdash. But so there's something mibachos which is menei us from doing the mitzvah. Or a person who face machshavas zaros, he has the ability to be mechaber, but he has Yitzhahara that doesn't let him wake up on time or do things right. But not that he doesn't have mitzadatzim with the kayach to do that mitzvah. Mashiach Yidiyas Hashem, the Rambam says l'asud lavi tirba adas v'achachma. We're going to get. The seichel is going to be b'shleimus. Today our seichel is not b'shleimus. Sadaf Shat there's a menei or master. Today the yid's keach seichel doesn't have the capability of Yidiyas Hashem. There's pashat going to be we're going to have seichel b'shleimus. The keach seichel is going to be nishlam. When the keach seichel is going to be nishlam, so we'll be able to do b'shleimus. Ideally, the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. The mitzvah of Yidiyas Elokus and Torah is the ideal yidiyah that a neighbor is able to have. We don't have the ideal. The ideal seichel doesn't exist today. We have seichel which is not the keich seichel is not b'shleimus. Lo'aslev is going to be the keich seichel b'shleimus. We'll be able to do the kind of mitzvah Yidiyas Hashem b'shleimus. So lo'aslev it's not stam that there's going to be meinim and ma'akvim tzdadim which are going to be in this battle. The chayfetz with which you do the mitzvah which is das doesn't exist b'shleimus v'zanazeh. So that's the Rebbe says here. Mikivan she'oz dafke tirba deya v'achachma. Had he calls man shadeya in a beriboy means the seichel is not beriboy. Efshe sheyidiyas Hashem b'shleimus. It's not that there's mashenkin b'shara mitzvahs. Sheheder hashleimus v'morak mitzat dvarim hameimim. Means be'etzem a person has the ability to focus. Chveis pirush hamilas. Elamai there's machshavas zaros on the side. You have the capabilities of doing it. Mashenkin yidiyas alokos the mitzvah is to understand. Daf t'cham seichel. B'zman hazeh the seichel is not v'yaz after that. So Lasid Love the fact that the what's in Yoni of Mashiach, Shleimus Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs that seem much more, you say, bailit in the mitzvah of Yidiyas Hashem. Okay, this is so that's the push the beer. We understand why it's negay, why these pratim are a chelik of the Indian of Yidiyas Mashiach. Why? Because what's the get the Yidiyas Mashiach? Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus. What's going to be ma'afsher that they're able to be kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus? And a person has to believe that one day there's going to be a time where the Torah and mitzvahs, the way they are written in Torah, is going to happen the way they are. The way the Alter Rebbe is entire, what a tzaddik is, let's say, that's going to be l'poil. The shvuah, it's going to happen k'mei Shiur. In order for that to happen, so the world has to be in a way that there's no hunger. Because if there's hunger, you're busy, your person doesn't have care. And if there's war, so also you don't have the peace of mind to be able to. So then you can't learn. The ideal kiyum mitzvah of Torah is to learn Torah b'chol rega v'rega. Should be Torah even also. You can't have that there's mucham. So since the chiva or the gather of Mashiach is kiyum Torah mitzvahs b'shleimus, so the Rambam is these pratim are the things which are going to be ma'afsher. They'll be able to have kiyum Torah mitzvahs b'shleimus. That's the Rebbe. That's the first beer. Why isn't again the chiv and Muna B'Yisam Mashiach the tier that won't be Rav, Melchama, Kineh, V'Tachas, and all those pratim? Ki tier zehu bir v'tam l'shleimus Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs. She'in yet zehu agad B'Yisam Mashiach means how are you going to have that there's going to be Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus? Because there won't be hunger, there won't be Kineh, more pratim the Rambam brings there. So b'meila that's what the Rambam brings it. You have a chiv to believe that it's going to happen. So you have a chiv to believe that what's going to happen? Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus, which means that there won't be wars. And there won't be fights. But the Rebbe said Pashta Zach. Why is that negeya in the Chiyav HaMunah? I mean, the Munah based on Mashiach is that it's going to be Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus. L'man hafkemina how it's going to happen. And what if a Yid's not going to know that it's going to come through the fact that there won't be hunger? What if there's going to be hunger and still will be Torah mitzvahs b'shleimus? Why is that negeya? The Rambam halt as also zan apiteva. But why? That's just a different study. How is that going to take place through that the world is not going to be mevavel a person? And how is that going to be mevavel? Because there won't be war. Technically speaking, so first of all, that's only the davar study which is ma'afsher kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs to happen. But even more, lamer zagen that there will be kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs without being sheilur of. Why? So it's still api halacha. It's not mechayiv that it should be in a way mitzvah through the fact that there's no rav. A beer is any aspect. The fianal, I get the B'Yisam Mashiach who will leave that Torah came is the Yisrael years V'Achas Hashleim, which that's true. Let's skip the brackets a second. But Elamai, Mashenkin Matzava Eilam, that's not a chelik of what B'Yisam Mashiach is. It's only the fact that Shlayiyah V'Leirav V'Leimachama Rak Inin Zdadi, which is Ma'afshel Yisrael As V'Yisam Mashiach. So that's double Zdadi, and let's see what happened a different way. V'Im came Adua Tir the Matzava Eilam Shiyah As Shluchor Rak Inin Zdadi Uprat V'Ged V'Chiva Mona B'Yisam Mashiach. Let's decide. We're just going to see even though the Rebbe doesn't say it in this eifim, but l'chura, this brackets it's like a kasha on the whole evening, because the Rebbe brings in the brackets here. The Rebbe says that the matzav ha'elam, according to the beer that he's saying now, the matzav ha'elam is just a chetimtza in order for there to facilitate kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs b'shleimus. So Meila wasn't get to know the facilitator. You have to know the chiyuv is to believe that the gufa is going to happen. Exactly how it's going to take place, that's not again in the Chiyuv HaMunah and in the Etzem Inyan. But the Rebbe adds here that the Rambam himself, the Rambam says in the halacha before that Chachleinis Abu Chacham L'Meis Mashiach Loi Kedei Sheish Toa Kol Ha'elam Sakama V'Kama things over there Elo Kedei Shiyu Pnui M'Teira V'Chachmasa. So L'Chakes L'Biyasei is not Kelol Dis Pratim Kumteis. This halacha of Leinis Abu Chacham, why is the Rambam saying what the Chachamim's desire for Mashiach was? Because the Rambam is saying it in. What has to be the desire of a Yid? So was darf men nis'av sein? What has to be our type? So nis'av chachamim, a geherik Yid was zuchter. He wants Mashiach to come. Why? Not because he's going to have yishut to kol ha'olam, but in order she pnuyim b'terev chachmasa. So which that's l'chakis l'biyasif. You have to await Mashiach's coming. So it doesn't say that they also she pnuyim b'terev chachmasa v'shalai yirav, because that's taken on negeh. So that's a kasha on the whole beer. That's a double study. There was the Arai Nish does it. Can't use like the Chiyuv HaMunah. And the Chiyuv L'chakis is because the Matzah Elam is what's going to be Ma'afshir. Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs. The Rambam like Nish does it. But I've believed the Chiyuv HaMunah B'Yisam Mashiach and the Chiyuv L'chakis L'Biyasi is there's going to be a time where it's going to be the ultimate Kiyam HaTorah mitzvahs. How it's going to happen, that's not again the Chiyuv HaMunah. Whether because there won't be hunger or because other reasons, that's not the That's how it's going. Which matzav is going to let such a situation happen, such a inyan happen? That's not a chilik of the chiyuv hamuna, and it's not a chilik of the chiyuv atzpiyah. But made the bleibt schwer. Why does the Rambam bring the prati advarim in the Sefer Hayat? Ha'elam even ha'inyan. Good. This is the longest sikha, I think. Hour and 45 minutes. This sikha of this Hadran and the Rambam. There's no hanach of the sikha. Besides for this Hadran here, we have no hanach of the sikha. The Rebbe spoke an hour and 45 minutes. So what's the Seder? The Rebbe said that the Elam is Rebbe Elam won't understand. Let's make it reden. Yeah, that's the Shish Levi. Weißt du, was great? Okay. The Rebbe also wasn't. The Rebbe didn't. Nicht gefüllt gut. Okay. Ah? Yeah. Okay. Civic Gimel. So this, okay, these are the Yukim, we're going to go through them. The Rambam, when the Rambam is matar in one halacha, how the world is going to be. No hunger, no war, no jealousy, then the Rambam says, that's the last couple of words. The A says, people are going to be very, very wise. Then he says, they're going to understand the Eibishter's das Beiram. And so first of all, like this, the Lashon Rambam is Yodim Dvar Mastum is not what's going to be their asik, what they're going to be involved in. Yodim is, you say someone is a Yadin. You're giving tayar on him. You're describing this person, that he is a Yidea. So the Lashon Yodim Dvar Mastumim is a tiur on the Gavra, on the Yid. Yasigu das Beiram is what his occupation is, or what he's going to do. Yedim Lashon Hevev, Yasigu Lashon Asid, Mash Mishim Duber kind of based in Yon. The Rambam attached here, different in the Hadran, and the Rebbe attaches the same words in the Rambam in many different ways. But here the Rebbe is attaching that Yedim Dvar Mastumim, Chacham Del Yedim Dvar Mastumim, is not speaking about Yidei Salukus. It's what type, they're going to be Grace Chacham. You see, we don't know yet what does it mean they're going to be very, very wise? But they're going to be very wise, and they're going to have Yidiyas in Bahalt and Azachim. Nothing to do with, we're not speaking about the being Mekayim Mitzvahs Yidiyas Hashem. We're describing they're going to have two very great qualities. Chacham G'deilim, say very wise people, and people that know hidden things. Yedin Dvar Mastum. You have someone that knows is only able to see what happens on the surface. You have people that they have Yidiyas in Dvar Mastum. Erveis Bahalt and Azachim. Because they're going to have these two miles of Yedin Dvar Mastumim and Chacham G'deilim, therefore they're going to have a sagas alukus b'shleimus. V'yasigu das Beiram is k'teitzah of these two miles that the Rambam mentions earlier of Yedin Dvar Mastumim and Chacham G'deilim. Because they're going to be Chacham G'deilim and Yedin Dvar Mastumim, there's a Azach cert mention, which they're very wise people and the Yedin Dvar Mastumim. As a result of that, their sagas alukus is going to be in a very strong way, in a very complete way. As he touched the Rebbe. So Yedin Dvar Mastumim who prat by Ili di Yisrael Guf, by Hem Chacham G'deilim. Hanushumatar is Ili di Yisrael Atzma. Their mile. Then number two, Ketitzah Mizeh, Sheinkin Yasigu das Beiram, Hakavani Yilaefin Kima Mitzvah di Dias Hashem Shiyaz. Shkim Mitzvazu Tia B'Tachas HaShleimus. Shasigu das Beiram Koma Sheish Ba'adam B'Kei Chadam L'Haven L'Asik. So the Rebbe, so Meir, Fizer, Rav Verstehen, what are the two inyanim over here of Yedin Dvar Mastum Yasigu das Beiram of Chacham G'deilim, and how are they by having these keiches, these keshrenis, it brings that you're mekayim mitzvahs Yidiyas Elokus b'shleimus. You say, this person, why is he able to be matzliach in Gemara? Because he has this fish. You understand? This tchuna is ketitzah, that you have this and this quality. Ketitzah means that therefore he can be matzliach in a saga so the Rambam says two shvachim, two miles which Yidden are going to have lost lavi. Chachamim g'deilim, Yidden dvar mastumim. Ketitzah mizeh, they'll have a very good hasag in Elokus. So what are these two inyanim? And how are these the qualities which bring hasagas Elokus? What does it mean? A very wise man. What does that mean? Very wise. And what does it mean? Yedin Dvar Mastum? Then, and how are these miles? How do these miles bring to hasagas Elokus b'shleimus? A zweite Sache, the Rambam says, Yasigu das Beiram mit verstehen Elokus kfi ke'echad. My kamashman. It's a double passion. A person can only know how much you have ability to know. Saying the Rambam is not being sheil honest. The Rambam already said before, Mayrech v'arichas deila, that the world's going to function up itebel asidov. Elam come and hug an egg. It's not going to be some miraculous things happening in the world. So versteht man doch that a person is able to understand according to his ability. What's the chiddush? Fikei chodem hay kamash l'am pshitish chodem echlazik rak fikei chibulay yesem befrag sham durid is das bein. Number 3, now the Rebbe fragt say Shalos when they get to the Raya the Rambam brings. The Rambam says a whole arichas. Usually, there are klal. I'm saying the klal. I'm saying usually in the Rambam. So you have many Gemaras. You have Beifin klali. The Rambam is the halachas are taken from mefurish dike mekayos. I'm saying Gemaras mefurashes. You have certain halachas that the nusach, the way the Rambam brings it, doesn't say earlier. It's not like you have somewhere in Chazal, some Mishnah that Ba'esi Azman Yi Yisach Chacham Daily. This is the Rambam built from different Mekayres, the Rambam like the Gimel Ikrim. There's nowhere in Chazal before a Hagdara of 13. The way that I'm saying the Rambam had a Makar, but the Makar is not doesn't have this Nisuach. So saying the Rambam says a whole arich is the Yi Yisach Chacham Daily. It brings a raya to what he's saying. The raya is the pasuk of Molar is there Hashem. So here the Rebbe reflects very shy that's when they get to the raya that Rambam brings. So Molar is the Hashem. You understand the raya? That's the raya that Li Yisach Kolel El Das Hashem B'Vad. But raya Molar is the Yisavai. But the Shayla is why isn't they get to bring Kamayim Lo Yamachas? That's extra. Madu Ma'ite Garam Gam Siyam Pasuk Kamayim Lo Yamachas. How is that a raya to what he's saying? Or what does that add to the raya? The raya is a Molar is the Hashem. What's that from Suligin? בפרט שלוחס תשובה, שגם שם את הרמב איך שבייס הזמן תיר בעדי והחוכם, ומביא עשי הפסוק, he adds over there, כי מול הארץ, but there לא הביא עשי המקוסף כמיים בלא מחסם. עכשיו, הצווית השאלה is that the chorek כמיים בלא מחסם is a stira to what the Rambam says earlier. It's not a raya, it's a stira. The Rambam says also there's going to be yasigu das beiram, they'll grasp the lukus, they'll be teifus the lukus, and yasigu means that you're teifus it, you process it well, it sits by you well in your mayach. Kamayim liyam mechasim, the water is not like mayim in a yam is not like water in a cup. That the cup retains its mitzias and the water fills the cup according to how much the cup is able to handle. The karkois hayam is fully overwhelmed with the water. Kamayim layam, the way the mayim is mechasid the yam. The Rambam redt nicht that we're going to be overwhelmed with the idea. The Rambam redt will be chachamim deilim umet verstehen a grundige idee in lukas. We said we're going to be overwhelmed with this idea. We're fully occupied with this. Overwhelmed is a whole different meaning. Kamam le mechasim is not azak. Lochor is a stirit. The Rambam brings earlier. Yesterim is in the kamam le mechasim. Lochor the hepech in the yasigu das beir. Yasigu das beir the meir Allah sagmim shel tfisa. Tfisa means that you I don't know you say, but someone understands something and he has a good grip of it. The step is given. Das hereingenommen in sich. But dugmas davar hanimtza behesik yodi. Yeah, certain things a person knows something, but he however much he knows it, he feels that there's there's still an emek which is beyond him. He doesn't feel like he got it fully. But it's not in a way that he's fully that he fully has he grasps it. He fully has it. He the tape is given. Mashe'ink yasigu means that you're taipis it. That's the lashon hasaga. Mashe'inkin kamayim lo mechasm is fakert. Meridal inish shelamayim mitzis sada. And a person is you say the Indian is makif you. It's machasa you. Shalchein hamoshel the mayim shemachasem es mitzis hayam achol ashabei. V'cheinu b'nimshel she'inei the deis Hashem nishar lemayim mitzis vasagos. Means you see the pashtus. The mayim is machasa the yam. That's the basic chilek between if a person understands something and it sits in his klei hameichen v'his after. So then his klei hameichen are in his battle. His mitzias and his way of understanding stays, and in his mayach hat tape is given the meaning. So the Indian was nitfast in his mayach. Mashegen if the Indian bleibt hecher, so then his mayach verliert. That's the mayim is machas on the karkoy sayam. Shachenu banim shachinu the desavai nishul mal mitzvos vasagos. Kemadu masam harambam in the kamayim lo machasim, which is l'chor the stira, and here he finishes off. Behem shach lebir ilu tagas l'kuzlos l'vishasigu das beir. Okay, number zeh. Yuben calls Zeh, so here it starts a little bit goofy. Who Yuben calls Zeh, behekte ma yedua, shagada mitzvah sidiyas Hashem, uleile diya shu yizbarach nimtza. Kivan shkol agada the mitzvah zu shaykh rak l'achra idea sheyesh l'kam mitzvah mitzvah, hari idea zu guf olei tachan lemar shehi mitzvah. It's a famous thing. The Rambam brings, it's machlokes in the Rambam and the Bahag, the Rambam brings the mitzvah seri shayna leida sheyesh malaka. What does it mean literally? To know that there's an Eibishter. Sheyesh malaka. So the shaila that the Rishonim ask the Rambam, how could he say that there's a mitzvah to know that a lukus exists, that the Eibusher exists? A mitzvah, say, it's not shaykh to say the concept of a mitzvah, there's no mitzvah. A mitzvah only comes after you know that there's a mitzvah. If there's no Eibishter, if there's no mitzvah, hebt gestand der musik von a mitzvah. So how could there be a mitzvah leida sheshem alaka? If you're talking to someone which is accepting the concept of a mitzvah, that means he already knows that there's a mitzvah. You can't be, the first commandment of the king is the awareness that he's the king. If you're accepting his command, so you don't know that a commandment means that the one that's commanding has the authority. If not, hebt gestand der ganze musik. So the Shaila and the Ravi and the Rambam sagen. The Ramban, there's two reasons to the Rishonim why the Bahag wasn't made the mitzvah vidiyas alakos in minyan mitzvahs. The Kula Alma, it's an important part of Yiddishkeit. But the Shaila is if it's nichlal in the minyan mitzvahs. That's the question. Not everything which we have to do is in minyan mitzvahs. Not every important thing which the Eibusher wants is in minyan mitzvahs. Minyan mitzvahs has certain gedarim. What goes into the count of the Ramach mitzvah? So Moshe Diyas alakos the Kula Alma. It's the Ratzna Ali in the Mishnah B'Diyas Olakos, nicht wegen dem Netzach. And the Ramban says the reason why the Bahag doesn't bring in minyan mitzvahs because it's a mitzvah clause. It's the foundation of everything, and the foundation of everything is not a part of the paratistic exodus that minyan mitzvahs is the orders of the king. The foundation of all the orders that's beyond the Taryag mitzvahs. That's a more fundamental meaning. But upon that's not what the Rebbe brings here. But the Rebbe brings here the taina of one of the Reb Chizdai Krashkash. If you learned in the Rebbe, but it brings over there this that Kash and the Rambam is how's it shaykh to say a mitzvah to know that there's an Eibishter? If the minute you're saying that there's a mitzvah, there's a mitzvah. Yeah. So the Rebbe brings it's the Lashon Hazeh. So that's a davar yedua that the gather of mitzvah Hashem is not the knowledge that there is an Eibishter. That's not the mitzvah. That's Kemen is arguing that that's the mitzvah because mitzvah based on Shem there's a mitzvah. Yeah. V'loshna barbanel kasher naniach emunas mitzias akel mitzvah kvar naniach emunas mitzias akel kedemes lemunas mitzias akel. Believing in the Eibusher is a mitzvah. That means that you're mekayim the mitzvah before the kiyama mitzvah. This is the Zach. So Meila Berta Shaila in the Ramam, but the Ramam says that the first command that the Eibusher gave, the first order is Yidiyas Alakus. A mitzvah has to be the Eibusher is commanding us to do something. So, what's made the Ram leida sheshem alaka? So there's kama biyurim. What's the pshat in the mitzvahs aseri shena leida sheshem alaka? Kama biyurim in there. So there is the Rebbe goes here according to the mahalach of the Abarbanel. Lamer zeh. So it's nicht as a poshut. Lamer zeh. So the Abarbanel says Masha kos varam shemitzvah shena leida sheshem alaka, which the Rebbe brought earlier there Chagav that it's the mitzvah achi chashuva this mitzvah. So in was besteht die Mitzvah var Abarbanel v'zel l'sheine. Mitzvah l'sheine hi shenamin shalaka baruch hu shekvar yadayna shu nimtza mitziusi hu hayeser rishin v'hayeser shalom. You have to know that this Eibishter, this Hashem, that you already know that He exists. You're starting to fulfill His commands. You have to know that this Eibishter is the most perfect being, the greatest being. Cannot be anything greater than Him. He is ultimate Shleimus and the ultimate greatness. Hayeser Rishon v'Hayeser Shalom. Hayeser Rishon means he's the Akadman. He's here from always, Akadman, and he's the most perfect being. Hayeser Shalom. There's no cheseres alukos. Tachas hashleimus. That's what the mitzvah. That lav dafka a person mitzad atzmai. There's an Eibishter. Is the Eibishter a perfect being? Is he mileless? Not mileless? What the Rebbe teaches here, before the mitzvah, we're talking about, let's say, today, we have many information, we have many things not based on the mitzvahs. I'm saying people have, the Rebbe is being mitzvah, a yid, a pir Rambam. What's the only thing you know before the mitzvah? You know there's an Eibishter. You know nothing about it. We'll see later what it means, what does the concept Eibishter mean. But the Rebbe is going to touch later, the Eibishter it doesn't have any taich. It's a muhos without any taich. Like when they say, we'll see later, with the Nashav Amiyaris, when they say Baruch Hashem, so there's someone they believe in. There's an Eibusher which they believe in. But this someone has no definition at all. Not Ein Sof. Doesn't have a description. We'll see later the pshat. But so what the Rebbe is teaching over here is we're dealing with a yid that before the mitzvah he knows there's an Eibusher. No description, nothing about it. Then the mitzvah is that this Eibusher, you know that he exists, and you know that whatever he says you have to do. That's for sure you know. So the first tzivah that he gave is that you should know, you should understand and learn and know that this Eibush, this Hashem, is the most perfect being. He's a Kadman, he was here from always. He's a Yeser Rishon. Va'yeser Shalom, Shebechol HaMetzius. Azeh halt der Barbanel. The Rebbe nehmt on this pshat. And then besteht the mitzvah. Tachas Shleimus, Yeser Shalom, Shebechol HaMetzius. Ki hu eni tzarech, and the Barbanel is Meirich, in was besteht the basic, what's the basic Shleimus that we say the Eibush says Hayeser Shalom. What's the basic traits of an ultimate Shalom? So he brings two basic tchunas. An ultimate Shalom is made up of two basic tchunas. One is kihu eni tzarech u'mtzias l'zlasi. He's not dependent on anything. He's perfect. He says because you say v'chi was the lashon negeh ta'aveda. You can't say that aveda is tzarech aveda. V'chi ika chisarin klapishmai. Say a person could be lacking something and someone else is going to fulfill. It's going to be mashlit. The Eibush is Havas HaShleimus. That's zukenim nicht ankommen. He's fully independent. Eni tzarech b'metzius l'zulas. For his existence and for beyond existence, he's fully independent, not dependent on anybody else. That's the first, they say, an ultimate shalom. A chasr means that he's lacking. So he's lacking, so something else is going to be mashlim, or a concept. The Eibishter, he within himself contains everything. That's the first concept. And the second thing he brings is the chomash shezolosei tzarech u'mtziusei. That another basic, the second most basic thing, not basic, I'm saying wrong. The second general thing, which is tachas hashleimus, is that anything outside of you is dependent on you. You're not dependent of anyone. You're fully independent, and everything which is in every mitzias outside of you is dependent on you. This is the two inyanim that Barbanel zog. That was not being meider. Why are these two tchunis? Why are these two inyanim? In them bashtei tachas hashleimus. But and there's kama biur. So these two general tchunas of who any tzarech mitzias l'zolasi, v'chamash zolasi tzarech mitzias elav. These are the two inyanim which are tachas hashleimus hamitzias. I mean, in other words, an ultimate ein saf hapiseichel is someone which is fully independent, and something which anything outside of him is dependent on him. There's pratim, but lamer das is the mitzvah. Zel mashkos varam shemitzvah leida he leid akshesh elikabechlal. The Rebbe is now being meisiv. Does like the Barbanel. The Rebbe is being meisiv here that mizetas in the lashon HaRambam in Sefer Hayar. Because the lashon HaRambam is leida akshesh elikabechlal kiim sheshem matzerishin v'umamtzik on nimtzu. And then the Rambam is meisiv klar nimtzoim lenimtzu elam amitis himatzu. So Shloime that's this lashon the Rambam means the Barbanel. Shkavanase based off Zula Hadgish Kamash Zlat is Rav Tziyas Eila. The Barbanel says that the two in Yonim Ikri. What's in them Bashtei Tachas HaShleimus is that he's independent. And that thus Verta Rizi Rachmadel, the Rambam says that Me'amitis Imatzi Nimtzu Kol HaNimtzoim. That means that he was here before everyone. He brought everything else into being. That means that his being didn't come from anybody else. Because he brought everything else into being. And what's the Rambam being Meisif that Kol HaNimtzoim Lenimtzu Elu Me'amitis Imatzi? What's that Isafa? It's a Keifalosh. Er sagt, mir mit dem was nimmt zu kallen im Zeim. Dann auch sagt er zweite Mal bekommen im Zeim, ich habe erst mal benehmen. Lei nimmt zu alle mit dem Zeim. So what's the word? So that word is that nothing, everything is dependent on him. He's independent. Vaharai brought everything into being. And everything is dependent on him. Anything that exists is only because the Eibishter brought him into existence. Das ist die We'll go weiter, yeah? I'm saying this, Barbanel, we understand the Negeh to the Hadran. Exactly why is a Negeh, and say the fact that the Eibush is independent, that we understand very well. Why something which is Tarech Mitziyus to Mishu Acher, that by definition means Chisan. Shleimus means that it darf zu keinem nicht ankommen. Any good thing that exists, is contained within himself. So that brings out that his Mitziyus is Tachas HaShleimus. That is ankommen zu keinem. But Shaila is why is the another prat in Shleimus is that everything which exists outside of him is dependent on him. Okay, but that's not negeh to the. This is the nekuda v'shteidah. Now let me zena b'slavayter. If we'll have time, we'll go through this, but let's first go to the point that the Rebbe is bringing out in the Hadran. Hine yesh Shleimar she'idiyas mitziyusis bar shlifnei atzibur shekvar yedayne shum nimtzo mekivan she'asibo la'idiyah shemitziyusi ha'yeser shalom chulu hinaylis yeser ma'idiyah shemitziyusi ha'yeser shalom. This is interessante Sache. I mean, the pashtus, the idea that a yid has before he's mekan mitzvah v'idiyas Hashem. He doesn't know anything. He knows there's an Eibishter. He doesn't know anything about, any description about this Eibishter. Doesn't know any pratim. If he's a mechuyev, he's a varamiti, mechuyev ametzias, and that he's a kadman, everybody's garnished. Everybody's not Eibishter. And then, mitzvah is, Mizbein understand the Eibishter's greatness. So, l'chora, the idea that he has after he's Mizbein is a sacha echad idea. It's chareingetracht. And he knows pratim in the gdul of the Eibishter. He knows the Eibishter's ain't safe, and he's mitzvah yusimatz musay. These are all pratim that he learns up his seichel. So l'chora the sasach echer from the idea that he had before Kiyam Mitzvah. Before Kiyam Mitzvah, he knew nothing, just this Eibishter. So the Rebbe will sagen das nicht to say that the idea that a yid has before Kiyam Mitzvah is a higher idea. Means it's a greater knowledge, a better knowledge of the Eibishter. You know the Eibishter better before the mitzvah than after the mitzvah. So it's a funny. The Rebbe says before the biur. What's the kaviyachol, the hechrich? What's the hechel, the idea before the tzivui is higher than the mitzvah after the tzivui? Because mikivon shehi has sibo la idea shem tzivui yeser shalom kol. So the Rebbe's taich is being a tire. What's that sibo? We're talking about a yid that leapt. There's nothing else besides for the Ratz and the Eibishter. So he's born. He knows that there's an Eibishter. That's it. He doesn't have to know anything more. The first thing he does before he does anything is looks. What's the Eibishter geheißen? The Eibishter geheißen is also reintrachten that and learn God's Hashem. So why does he have ideas in pratim of Elokus? Because the Eibishter does geheißen. So the sibah of why he knows pratim is because he had a basic knowledge of the Eibishter before there's an Eibishter, and he knew that you have to obey his commands. And k'titzah mizeh, his command is to be mizbein, defar the mizbein given. So the sibah why he knows pratim in Gdulas Hashem is a mesubah of the idea that he knew, the idea klolus that he had before the mitzvah. I'm saying regularly, a person is not because there's a mitzvah, the fires are young in people naturally they're curious. So in what type of being is this Eibishter? Okay, but the Rebbe is saying something else. The sibah of why in the Rambam, the sibah of why you're being misbeinin and you're having ideas in the pratim of Gdulas Hashem is keteitzah, is a mesubah of the leida sheshem alakah. Because for was hebst on trachten was da mitzvah. Because the Eibishter does geheis. What's this Eibishter was geheis? And the klal is that the sibah is higher than the mesubah. If the sibah is a marker for it, then the sibah is higher. That means the Rebbe say the same way you say a marker and a tetzam and a marker. A sibah and a mesubah is something which comes as a result of the sibah. So the marker has to be greater than this thing which extends from the marker. So the Rebbe is saying here the fact that a yid, the idea calls that a yid has Asdan Eibishter, that's what causes the Havanas Prati Yon. And so Mele, that idea is the marker of that. So Mele, the marker has to be high. As it has the Rebbe though. If the Shum Musik of a Sibba means that that's what brought that. I'm saying you're being retired. Huh?
Why do you think what's that?
The mitzvah. There's a mitzvah. There's an Eibishter. This Eibishter, and because of this idea that you had, so that you have to obey what he says. So the fact that you're going to Mizbein is all ketitza and based on the Eibishter which you have to obey. Yeah, in Pashas, in Cheshbon Pashat it's not a. The Rebbe is saying Bamita Se'inyan. Bamita Se'inyan. This is the Sibah.
Means that you're trusting them.
No, without saying that. What's the reason why you're going to Mizbein? Because you obey what the Eibishter said. Which Eibishter is what's pushing you to go do what he said? That's the idea clause. So once you have the idea clause as done Eibishter, as a reason, that's what's greater, the whole tetzah of being Mizbein. We'll see later. This is a. So what's the Nekuda the Rebbe says? The Nekuda the Rebbe is going to say is that Sefaran, the Eibishter's miles, the Eibishter's Tachal Shleimus HaMetzius, the ultimate perfection, Hechste Sachen of the Welt, but that's not the Atzmis of Elokus. The Eibishter he has miles too. He's Tachal Shleimus, but that's not the core of what the Eibishter is. The Eibishter himself is beyond any definition at all. There's him. It's not the Eibishter alone. Not a Inyan Naila. It's not the Eibishter alone. The idea that a Yid has, the idea Klolis, Sheyeshem Alakah, that's not a idea. That's the etzem. That's the Eibishter. That's the etzem itself. That's the Rebbe's going to be mazur. The idea that a Yid has before there's a mitzvah, The idea called is Asada got, Asada Eibishter. This Eibishter, which has no description, this Eibishter. It's not Tachas Ha'ilin, it's not Ein Sof, no description at all. There's a someone that you trust this someone, you have to listen to whatever he says. Whatever he's the only one that you turn to. But what type of being is it? The concept of a type doesn't exist in that level of idea. That was going to bring the problem. And that idea that you have is not just say something. A person knows something in a vague way. So you don't. Mashenkin later the pashas you understand is the idea that you have before the tzivoy is a vague knowledge. You have a general ideas about the Eibush, and then it becomes concrete. You know, pratim. The Eibush is this, and he's a kadmin, and he's a beira, and he's this mile and that mile. You start learning more pratim, and in Shiurim in the goddess of Elokus. The idea before is just a vague general idea. The idea before the idea that a yid has before he started using his brain and being his brain. The idea that a yid has before, and this is not the idea that we have. I'm saying the idea that the Rebbe is being entire here, the idea that comes before a person started activating his seichel and started areintrachten. The idea Hashem that a person has mi'ikrei, that idea is the mustig of Elokus the way it is ba'atzmi yusei. There he has the idea Hashem, the atzmis of Elokus mamish. That's Modei Yibishter. Which since the Esem Yibishter is a someone without a taich, not without a taich in the sense that he's beyond, not the concept of beyond either. There's only him himself. There's no Inyan, no Metzias at all. There's only him, and whatever he wants. There's only him himself. That only him, that's what's Meir by Seder Dach. There's a someone which he's everything. Not in the sense of everything, he's nice akal. That whatever he wants is whatever he says you have to do. If you need something, you turn to him. But what is this him? Beyond saying the concept of what. And that idea is an idea in Etzem Elokus. And the same way you say the Eibush is the mocker for everything, because the Etzem of Elokus is beyond any definition, beyond any description. He's not beyond definition too. If he wants, he has milas too. This Etzem which is beyond a taich, which is beyond any definition. So if he wants, he's the Tachas HaShlemos also. So Ketitzah Mizeh, because the Eibush is an Etzem which has no tzir, b'meili he has his Tachas HaShlemos. So al derech zeh comes out when they get to the idea of a person. The idea that a person has before the mitzvahs, which is the idea in the etzem. Once you have an idea in the etzem, k'teitzah mizeh, you're going to have an idea also in the shleimus of Elokus. The same way when you get to the nice that we're knowing, that the etzem is the source of everything, because there's atzmas. But mainly you also have tachas hashleimos. So al derech zeh when you get to yid, once you have knowledge in the etzem of the Eibush there. So as that's the mocker where you're going to have knowledge also in the pratim and the shleimus and Elokus. So a person's ideas, with the Rebbe's teaching here, the person's ideas in Elokus is not the way we understand it. A person has the idea calls him as a kid, and then he learns stuff. Later in life, he learns stuff. The things that you learn, that's nimshach from the Seder. I will see later. But that's the Nekuda calls of the Rebbe's doctor. So hine yeshtam shidias mitzvah shlifnei atzivoy. He nailis yeser my idea shemitziyusa hi yeser shalom chul. The Rebbe hebt on bayin hazeh. Vabir bezeh. Shleim was the mitziyusa is barach mashu in Yisrael chuzulase. Which, these are the two basic traits which represent ultimate perfection. Ultimate perfection is reflected in the fact that ein Yisrael chuzulase, that he is fully independent, doesn't need anyone to complement him, doesn't need he's not lacking anything. So this, the fact that in them bastate ultimate shleimus, that shleimus shall be seichel. Means al seichel, ultimate perfection, ultimate shleimus is that he's ein sof and everything is dependent, which is the nekuda is that he's ein sof. Hu in Yisrael chuzolasi v'kol ma shalot zerach mitzvah. So that's al seichel and was bastate ultimate shleimus. Seichel is a nivra. Seichel is a nivra mugbal. So what Seichel is able to reach, what's ultimate perfection, is not the true ultimate perfection. That's a double question. Seichel is a limited entity, and what Seichel is mechayiv, what's ultimate perfection, is Seichel is limited. I'm saying the same way a person's eyes only sees to a certain limit. Beyond the limit you can't see. So Seichel can only understand to a certain limit, whatever the hagdaras of Seichel is. Weiter weiß So the Seichel, the ultimate perfection, the ultimate shleimus is the two general And there's all the biyurim which exist when they get to the inyanim of Elokus is all nichal on these two inyanim. There's a ribi dark. See, the Eibishter is any tzarach l'zolasi. That is, so there's ribi biyurim. What's that any tzarach l'zolasi? The Alter Rebbe is written Tanya that ein siba, ein ila v'siba shekod malei chas v'shalom. There's ribi dargis in this mile of any tzarach l'zolasi. There's ribi dargis in the mile of komash zolot tzarach l'zolasi also. But that's all seichel. Seichel is a limited entity. So that's the ultimate. What seichel is able to come to in was besteht ultimate shleimus. But seichel can't say is mukbal. The mela doesn't have an awareness of what ultimate shleimus is. This ultimate shleimus is beyond what seichel is able to grasp. So even within the concept of tachas shleimus, what seichel understands is limited to how much what seichel is able to understand. What's ultimate shleimus? That's the Ershes. So shleimus with mitzvahs is baruch shleimus shal pi seichel. We'll skip this. Before we get the Rebbe adds here more part. I'm just saying. So, but we'll skip. We're going to go back to this. We'll skip this a second. The idea the Shloime zu hirak meshach yishmor chatzimtzim is hatzim kaviyachal yisham gam mikidrasei. Avo poshut this idea komash is lot tzarich l'tziyel is a lot tzarich l'tziyel to the Eibishter poshut she'enu evat the klal uklal amitis inen hashleimo shalamal mikidrasei. That's the Ershes. Now the Rebbe adds here in the Hadran azay zok ben azay. There is the shleimo shal piseichel. The piseichel, the tachah the shleimos is bligvol. That's it. Komash is a lot of Let me say what seichel understands ultimate perfection. That nicht in dem besteht what ultimate shleimos is, what ultimate mile is. That's how much seichel understands ultimate mile. Then there's amitis inin hashleimos, which is beyond seichel. So that's but the Rebbe adds here another prat that not only that the shleimos, which seichel, what the Rabbanel says, the shleimos shall be seichel, nicht in dem besteht ultimate shleimos. The Rebbe adds here that the shleimos shall be seichel, the Eibush is not mucher in them. That's like to the Rebbe though. That's the Rebbe adds here. Kima shekish baruch in the book the B'Shem Gadach HaShalom. Gam loy be'es magdaram shall be seichel emichiyavim. So b'meile, the Eibush is not mucher that he has to contain these qualities. That's the chiddush of the Rebbe Zogda. I mean, no homo. So that's one of the Rebbe spoke about in the Shabbosim after, much broader in this Indian, but that's the first word of was the Rebbe Zogda. The etzem zach that there's shleimus shlomailem yaseichel. That's nicht chiddush. The fact that the Eibush is beyond shleimus shal piseichel, that's the state. The Rebbe is saying here that the klal in which the milas that the Abrabanel says, that's milas in Beire the way seichel understands the musik of Beire. So not only that's not nicht in dem state, ultimate perfection, ultimate shleimus, but the Eibishter doesn't. But these inyanim aren't considered shleimus legabe, and it's nicht mucher as es haben die meiles. A pisechel der meiles, but the Eibishter not mucher in sechel. So the meiles what legabe him it's not meiles b'chal, and it's what gekent sein that the Eibishter should not have these meiles. That's the chiddush the Rebbe says here. The Indian of Komash is the Rebbe is going to speak later is that Komash is Zolase Tzarech Mitzvusei. A piece Seichel and Buzz Bashteit, a perfect being, that everything outside of him daf onkum in So the Rebbe says here that's only a piece Seichel first of all, and the Eibush is not Muchrich in Seichel. So Mele Legabe him it is nicht Kemaile Legabe the Eibush himself, and therefore Mitzad the Eibush himself is not defined that he has to contain this quality. It's can sein that there's that Masha Zolase. That's but this line. Gam so we'll start this Indian. There's pratim here, and then there's also the point. So we'll cover the Inyanim, but this is the Hebtzach on the Gufin.